Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for our Sage Intacct Construction demo. My name is Mara Kadimer, a marketing coordinator here at Action Associates. Just some quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded, so you are muted. The link to the recording will be sent to you automatically shortly after the webinar finishes. There is no dial-in number for this webinar, so hopefully you can all hear us. During the presentation, please use the Q&A feature to ask questions if needed, and we'll answer them during the Q&A session at the end. Also, we have provided a post-webinar survey, which is already available in your webinar console. Please fill that out as your feedback is important to us. With that being said, let me introduce you to our presenter today, Jared Wazlewski. He has been a pre-sales engineer here at Action for 2 years and has over 8 years experience with Sage software and is an expert in Sage Intacct Construction specifically. Now let's get to the content that you are here for. Go ahead and take over, Jared.
Thank you so much. So again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. A few things I want to just kind of talk about real quickly. As you may hear, I am a little bit under the weather today, so I may go on mute just to cough a little bit. So if there's a lull, your audio is probably still working. Just note that I might have to go on mute. A couple things as well that I wanted to mention. Some upcoming events that are going to be happening. So there is going to be a TimberScan webinar tomorrow for the Sage 300 side, on the 21st, as well as if you guys are attending the CFMA National Conference down in Texas, Action will be there. I'd love to get together with you guys, talk with you, or even kind of show you a little bit more of Intacct while we're there. So what we want to cover today is really kind of talking about what is Sage Intacct. As we go through that process, I'm going to jump into the actual software and give you really a live look on how we're going to be able to navigate through that. Really, what is a true native cloud functionality, showing a couple different reportings in there and capabilities that we're going to have through. But really, when we started talking about that, and that first point is really, what is Sage Intacct? Well, as we know, Sage Intacct is a cloud-based construction software. As we start to look at this, there's a lot of different workflows, different abilities to integrate many of your different platforms, such as your Procores, your TimberScans, your paperlesses, or any of those other ones. So really what this allows us to do is easily be able to communicate with all sorts of different applications out there, as well as the system has what they call Open API, which essentially says no longer those on-prem days where you can't integrate. That Open API allows us to integrate with outside parties that don't have an existing integration built, right? And then as we really start talking about Sage Intacct for construction, really what I want to show you is Sage Intacct has been around since, I want to say, the 1997, and Sage acquired them back in 2017. And Intacct itself has had many different verticals that it's focused on, such as the not-for-profit, wholesale, healthcare, a lot of these different markets. And when Sage acquired that system, what they wanted to do is give that next-gen capabilities to the construction vertical. And so as we see here, anything with that kind of or the green-orange background, really what that is a lot of these enhancements or a lot of these functionalities as sales orders, projects, inventory, really already existed in the platform, but it wasn't tailored or tweaked to the construction division, such as projects were already in the platform. But when we start talking about construction, there wasn't anything like our cost code structures or extras or anything like that. So they really built out that functionality to enhance that. So again, a lot of functionality within this platform, which means a lot of updates to it within the Intacct platform. But like I said, it's been around for many, many years. It's really going to be the next gen system that Sage is going to move to. So really with that being said, I want to just get right into it and start to go over some of the workflows, what Intacct looks like, and go from there. So let me share my screen. So perfect. So as we start to look into Intacct, a couple things I want to go over, really the navigation, how we're going to move throughout the system before we start talking about a lot of those different reporting capabilities and different workflows. So as we navigate through this, I do want to draw your attention over here. Currently, I'm logged in as the administrator, right? So essentially that gives me the power to see and do anything I want to. And this is one of those big differentiators between a lot of the on-prem products that Sage has had and this new Intacct place is the licenses are all done by individuals. It's not done by the licenses or the modules themselves. So each user will give their own license. And then within that, you can set up who's going to have visibility to see what and edit what or see or do or whatever the capabilities are. So as we get to this application dropdown, something like a business license, well, they're going to be able to have the visibility to see everything, your accounts payable, GL, cash management, all of your projects as well. But when we start talking about maybe something like a project manager license, that's going to work a little different. That's going to be more something like the users will be able to create, new projects, create purchase orders, as well as maybe subcontracts, but they're not going to have the visibility to be able to come in and pay out any bills or see that AP, GL, AR modules. All right. And then the last license type is going to be your time and expenses or your employee module. Really what this gives the users to do is if you want to capture time and any expenses directly through Intacct, they could be able to do that. Now, the out-of-the-box thinking that we've started to see a lot of organizations use is they actually will use this employee license for their exec team or their management team, where they're not going to necessarily need to do data entry, but they want to be able to view all the fields. They want to be able to view those different reports. We can set them up with that employee license, again, cheaper cost, and then they won't obviously, they'll be able to see everything, but they won't be able to add new. They could delegate that action. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about delegating some workflows. All right. As we start to go through each of these different modules, something might stood out to you. You might see some fields that have stars. So again, now we have the user set up, but I want to make a personalized profile to myself or those common tasks that I'll use on a day in and day out basis. So over here with the stars, this is just essentially showing me, this is my favorites tab. So this allows me to be able to see all of the specific modules within the platform that I have said I'm going to use on a day-to-day basis. And so I can quickly go to those, not only just modules, but I could also go to those dashboards like we see in the background, or even those different reports that we might as well see. So again, just another way to kind of help personalize the viewing or the navigation experience. Last way, or second to last way, I should say, to navigate, over here on the far right, you're going to see the bookmarks. Bookmarks allows us to get more granular. So as opposed to a module or even the reports, what this will allow us to do is open up a specific PO. Maybe it's something that you're partially filled out or something that you want to keep track of and be able to reference constantly. This allows us to get more of that granular basis. So again, as a showing of just that purchase order module, and then you got to filter out everything, this allows us to show us that individual purchase. You could also even search for, say, that specific purchase order if you didn't want to favorite it. Or in this case, I'm going to say, maybe I got a call from a vendor and they want to see a specific bill. I can go in, type in the bill number. I can either tell the system to search across the entire platform to show anything that might meet that naming or numbering criteria, or I can even just show us just the specific bills themselves and say, just go ahead and search just that application. And as the system does that, it's going to find anything that would meet that numbering criteria, and then I'm able to go in there and view the contents of said bill. As this gets expanded upon, a few things will stand out to you. So within Intacct, you're going to kind of see this throughout the presentation. When we start to get to some of those transactions or some more of the detail, you're going to see a lot of these will summarize kind of this key data up top. So as you see on screen, it could be bill due, bill date. Has the bill been paid? If it hasn't been paid, it could give you, or if it's overdue, it can give you a date duration of how far overdue is that bill. Again, that could be something that we can report off of or run those reports to see anything that's overdue. but at least this is going to do a summarizing of that bill invoice data that you're looking at. Underneath that is going to expand on that matter. So again, we're looking at a specific bill. I need to know the vendor themselves, our payment terms. Down the bottom is the actual entry of each of the line items that we've included. And this is going to be the first look where I want to start to draw attention into what a dimension is. So as we go through this system, I can fill out what project it is, cost code, and then tagging it to departments, locations, or different fields. Again, we're going to kind of talk more on this when we get into the report side of things. The second thing you might also notice is obviously the image to the right of it. So if we've uploaded an image in here, we're going to be able to see that right here under the attachments, we can have a side-by-side invoice. Now, if you guys are leveraging TimberScan or the titanium product, same kind of workflow, you're going to have a hyperlink right here that will be able to reference that exact image of the invoice or the bill that has been submitted or approved in that payment process. All right. Now, earlier I mentioned some delegation of manager roles or managers. Well, in this particular bill or that we're working on, if I might have found an error, what I could do is come down below here. You're going to see this functionality called Intacct Collaboration. Essentially, what this allows us to do is allows us to kind of communicate with other individuals within our organization who also have access or the ability to see the Intacct or have any of that capabilities. And this allows us to kind of build an audit trail. So again, what we want to do here is we want to kind of get away from those days where you're, walking down the hall, asking the questions, sending an email out. We want to kind of build a central location. So if I'm looking at a bill, I can see any questions, concerns that may have come up surrounding that bill. Again, giving us that audit trail of exactly what's happened or what's happening on that. Now, when we send a message, a few things happen. Is up here on the top right, you're going to see this little message bubble, like a text message. So any of the times I address it to an individual, they're going to receive a little notification up there. They'll also receive a email notification. And the nice thing with that email is it's not generic. It's going to have in the body of the email, it will have the actual question that is being asked. And then more importantly, it's going to have a hyperlink that doesn't take you just to Intacct. It takes you directly to this bill. So now what we're trying to do is get these questions addressed as easily as possible. So those users can click that hyperlink, address the question, take care of the action without having to go through 9 different menus or trying to track down the specific bill, searching it up or anything like that. All right. So now jumping back into some of the dashboards that we saw before. And actually, before I do hop into those dashboards, I do want to show you this home page. And really what we're showing here is because Intacct is that true native cloud functionality. So as you see, I'm logged in on the browser. I can see this information wherever I am or wherever I'm going to get internet access. The nice thing with being a true native cloud functionality is we're all the users are all on the same version of the platform. Well, what does that mean? Anytime a release is available to you or an update is available, it's done automatically. So essentially here what's happened back on February 16th, on that Friday, I logged out, the update gets rolled out automatically. The next working day I log in, I'm on the latest version. I don't have to worry about getting an IT individual to come run this, to send this out. What this also allows us to do is there is what they call an Intacct marketplace. That is a list of all, I think it's 250 plus and growing different vendors that integrate with the platform. And why I bring that up is some of the concern with a lot of on-prem is, okay, I have an update, that integration might not work. Well, Intacct and those vendors have gone through an extensive testing process to essentially guarantee is one of these updates happen, those integrations aren't going to break. So it's like giving that peace of mind that you're just continuing on work on the latest version, and all of your integrations that have been on that marketplace, such as, again, TimberScans, or Titanium, the Procores, ADP, a lot of those lists, all of those integrations are going to continue working. All right. So going back into the workflow, what I really wanted to go and focus on today is more around our dashboards, our reporting capabilities. So what is dashboards? Well, dashboards are kind of like a central location to kind of group a lot of different reports, metrics into one single view that we can quickly reference. And really, how did you get to dashboards, or what are the fundamental makeups of a dashboard? Really built out into three major fields. So up here on the top, these are what we would just call as our performance cards. So this is going to be just a metric at a glance. How are we doing on a specific topic? I can see my revenue, I can see new jobs, I can see existing jobs, and then I can even put a comparison under here. So how are we doing year prior? How are we doing quarter prior, month over month? Again, a lot of capability to personalize these different fields, but these are just going to be that at a glance, how are we going to be doing on a specific metric? Underneath that, you're going to see your traditional charts, graphs, things like that. Really what this is going to give us is that visual representation of whatever data you want to prefer or whatever data you're capturing. On screen, I have as an example is our project profit. And below you can see all of our projects, where they sit, what is the most profitable, what is the least profitable. But you could also do something like an estimate versus an actual, which I'll show you in a moment on another dashboard. And then underneath that, to the right of that, are going to be our traditional reports. So this is going to be something like our balance sheet, P&L by location if we're having multiple locations. But this allows us to kind of group all those dashboards and commonize it into one single view. So when we're doing these dashboards, or when we create these dashboards, a lot of ability around customizing the data that you see. So what I mean by this is I have created a role-based dashboard as an example. So when you guys go through the implementation, you can work with a consultant to create whatever makes sense to you. And I've created several different roles. Now, when we start to look at all these different roles, the question comes up, well, maybe I don't want everyone in our organization to be able to see this data. And that's absolutely something you can do in security by going into your settings, is give the people who will have the capability or need the capability to see this particular, and the ones who don't aren't going to have the ability to even see this, so they won't even be able to log in or even view that dashboard. So just know that that information will be saved. The other thing that's nice as well is now we might have a central dashboard, something that we all use or we all reference. But what if I want to see something maybe a little different? Add in a WIP report into this as an example, whatever the information might be. Well, you can always duplicate any of your dashboards, and then just from this little plus, add to any of these different tiles, these different fields that we want to. So I can even put hyperlinks to external programs. I could put in kind of a guide or even a chat field I think I have down here. So I can include all of our chats, different hyperlinks from here. So these dashboards really are just kind of a central hub of all of the different reports into a single view. You could absolutely run these reports or even expand on them by just hitting the magnifying glass, but I did want to kind of give you guys that information. So another dashboard I wanted to show you, we're going to go into our project performance. Yep. So as we go into this more project-based dashboard, again, you're going to be able to see the same fundamental principles. Again, the layout looks a little different, and that can be customized by you guys. But while we start to look at all this different information, this is where we start to break out, or I want to ask those questions of how do I know this, or where does this information come from? And with Intacct, anything that you see as these little hyperlinks on them, what that should represent to you guys is the ability to drill into that data or expand on that. Ask that question, where is this information coming from? So for instance, if I wanted to look at this La Quinta Houston, I can see obviously the contract that we have, what we've estimated at, what our gross profit is. There's just a simple calculation in the back end of the report. Over here, I can also see the total cost. So referencing, if I have a project manager who wants to see more about this, or even has a question, hey, Jared, I don't recognize this $12,000 charge on my job. Can you look at it? Well, you know, maybe they don't give us all the information, so I got to kind of figure out that and go into it and figure out where is that $12,000 charge. So I can go in, click that hyperlink. It's going to allow me to drill into that data to show us everything, our hours, cost of labor, cost of subcontracts, all that information. But I can also reference, there's that $12,000 charge. So if I want to expand on this as more and go, okay, I need to know more information about this, I can click that hyperlink, pull up that same that bill, and as we see from earlier, this is that same bill that we were at by searching. So the takeaway really here is there's a lot of different ways to get to that same endpoint. It's not so modular based anymore. It allows us to easily ask these questions, drill down to that information, and then when you're at that, and pending that you have the rights is the big thing, you can make any edits, any changes directly from here, and you're not having to jump out or jump back. And the nice thing with this is it allows you to keep asking more and more questions. So if I get to this bill and I go, hey, something needs to be updated on the vendor, I can even click to that vendor's page and be able to see all the vendor record directly from here. So again, it allows us to, big difference with Intacct, it allows us to have that visibility or that capability to continuously ask questions. And then when we've asked or found the answer to the questions, you can go ahead and address them directly from there. That same principle also works for any of these dashboards or, excuse me, any of these performance cards or even these charts down below. You can click into those and be able to have a hyperlink directly out of the system. So I did see also a question kind of came up with how does this work when we have multiple companies? And I wanted to address this more now than right when you had earlier asked this. And really the way it works is what you're looking at here is a top level view. Top level is essentially giving us a consolidated report of every single entity underneath that. So when I look up here in this top level and I select that drop, this is summarizing, here's the performance of all the different entities I have within that. If you then wanted to kind of break out that and say, I just want to see how the GC side of things is doing. I don't care about the residential or the sub side of things. I can click on that specific entity, pulling out just that data. And the nice thing is it's the same dashboard, same reports makeup, but just the information behind it has changed, right? So we're getting that level of detail where we can just quickly be able to click. And then when we want to take it that next step further, this is earlier when I was at that bills or the invoice page where I mentioned those dimensions. This is where this is going to also come back into play. So what a dimension allows us to do is while we are at that source transaction, it allows us to tag it in a meaningful way for us to then report off of. This is a list of just the out-of-the-box dimensions. You can absolutely change these. You could even add them if you wanted to add additional dimensions. These are just ones that we've delegated kind of as a good standard practice. But when we go back to this dashboard, this is where we can start to break it out by, I want to see it by different departments. These departments or these fields, again, these are all user-defined. So when we go through the implementation process, we're going to emulate how you guys have your breakout internally, and we're going to emulate that into this structure. Same thing with the locations. Again, these are just multiple different locations that we're going to have. You could even break it out by your customer as well. So if you want to see by a certain amount of projects that you're doing on the same customer, you can filter that information. And then you could even go back to any historical data. So if I want to see how did I do a year ago, hit apply, hit that change. Again, data dashboard will remain the same, but the data behind it now changes to reflect whatever the filtering or the dimensions that you have. All right. So while we start to go through some of this as well, again, a lot of capabilities, still some individuals, some organizations are just more familiar or want to take all of this information, put this to a report, send this to an individual, or export this to Excel. Absolutely, you can print out this information. You can send this out to Excel. But even with our reporting side of things, if I open up some of those financial reports, again, not getting too detailed with how to create reports. But even once a report has been created, you can see we can schedule this out on a specific cadence. So if it's something that we send out to all of our projects for project managers on Monday morning, we'd be able to go ahead and build that scheduled out, identify who's going to be able to receive that, and help automate that process. Okay. So now, again, we talked a lot about dashboards, talked about a lot of reporting, the filtering capabilities. What I want to jump over into is our projects Then we're going to kind of talk about some of the contract side of things, creating invoices. So jumping over into a project side of things, here's a list of all the projects that are underneath this particular entity. With projects, you can absolutely have, I think in 300 they call them extras. You can have what we call parent, child, or even grandchild or great grandchild. So that would be multiple tiers that kind of roll up into a single project. So just like you might use as an extras. So from this list, this project list, again, you'll see this kind of same menu look and feel, whether you're on your projects, you're on your contracts, change orders, bills, invoice, really wherever. What this acts as is kind of like a mini query tool where we can filter out and say, hey, I want to see projects by specific status. Or even if we have these filters, or these are those common ones that we go into multiple times throughout the day, you can save all of these views and then again, even add those to your dashboards as well. So if you want to see it by the bidding stage, in progress, or if I want to show all of my warehouse jobs, I could see that filtering by just my warehouse jobs. With Intacct, there's a lot of capabilities to enhance or create these filtering. And again, just to give you guys some examples of the different fields that you have, here's the menu where I could start to filter or edit these. Now, one thing I want to draw your attention to is down here in the bottom, you're going to see this little red dot. This red dot essentially indicates to me that this is a custom field that I've gone out and created, right? Now, when you hear that word, you're going to think, oh, it's going to be consulting hours. It's a headache. It is really not. It is a part of the system. You go in, you say, I want to create a custom field, and then you tell it what type of field and where it's going to be located, right? So kind of expanding on that, I open up my jobs. Sam Jackson Hall here. Go ahead and hit edit. So expanding on that, one of the fields was this owner number. And in here I created, and I said it's going to be an alphanumeric field. So I could put date, number, whatever text field. You could have it being something like a checkbox. So maybe if it's a vendor and it's minority owned business and you want to have that check field in there. Or if you want to have it something like this project status, you can have a drop down menu. So all you're doing is telling the system what the field name is, what type of, how you're going to collect that drop down alphanumeric check field, and then where you want that located. So in this case, I could put it under my project information. If you wanted to get really creative and start to take it to the next level, you could even create custom tabs in the system to capture all sorts of different information. Now, to create a custom tab is going to be a little bit more work to do and not as easy as just creating a custom field, but still you're going to have that capabilities to do that. Now, when we start to talk about some workflows and even creating some of these fields here, a lot of times when we start to look at Intacct, we want to solve for any automation issues or how do we automate or improve on those specific workflows. So something like if I wanted to come into my project information, project status, and a project is currently at a bidded stage, and I want to notify some individual user, maybe today we're going to have to say, send out an email. But within the Intacct, what you could do is use what they call a smart rule and a smart event. So a smart rule works as if this status goes from bidded to awarded or in progress, then I want to automatically notify someone under my People's tab, which is going to be my project manager, that the job has been awarded, and they're able to go into that. That's going to be a smart a rule, kind of that, or a smart event, excuse me. If this happens, send this out. A smart rule works a little differently. A smart rule works as kind of a way to ensure you're getting all of that data collected. So as you see through kind of these required fields, if I needed to have an owner number or whatever field that you guys have to capture every single time before you have that project go under active or awarded, the system, you can build out a rule that says you need to capture X, Y, and Z before you're able to hit send and if you or save. And if you do hit save without capturing that, it will come up with an error message. So that's kind of more of a smart rule, all right? So again, a couple ways to help automate those different workflows. Now, as we scroll through here, again, I'm going to skip over a couple different tabs or summary resources, going to our cost codes specific to this project. and then also referencing the estimate. So again, a couple ways to get your estimate in here. So if you are using Sage estimating today, if you do have that wizard that's already integrated with the 100, 300 product, same workflow applies. You're just going to select a drop down where it just says Sage Intacct as opposed to 300 or 100, but that data would automatically get sent in here. If you're using a system that is not integrated with the Intacct platform, you can simply just upload through a CSV file. There's a lot of different templates that Intacct will provide to you that just needs to see a certain structure, and then we pull in all that data for you, all right? But once that data is in here, again, it's going to summarize a lot of this data, as you see here, into a single line item. But as we want to expand out that and see the contents of it, you can see I can have an entire build out of where all of our cost is, what labor, what type of items. Again, these are just some examples that I have here. And then if I wanted to expand on this field, I can see all these different fields that we can capture or additionally capture, so such as the material, item, cost, vendor, if we wanted to associate that with as well. As you might have seen, if I go ahead and step back, capture also multiple estimates within the system. So I know in I think 300 today, the CRE system, you can only capture one. So if you wanted to track multiple estimates into here, you can absolutely do that. Now with Intacct, again, we want to make this as simple on a lot of the users. So a lot of the workflows that we have, I don't want to make you jump out of modules to find basic details or some certain information. Kind of elaborating on that, what I mean by is over here in the purchasing and commitment cost, if I want to see any charges, commitments that pertain to this project, I can go into this tab without having to go into the drop down, opening up the purchasing, hitting the purchase order field. I'm able to just kind of reference here. And then just like the same project page, I can use any references from here. So if I wanted to see a subcontract, I can just type in sub, start to fill that out, and it's going to find anything that meets that criteria to be able to reference it. And then as everyone knows, anytime we have this little hyperlink, I'm able to go into that contract or into that invoice to see the details around this. So I can see any pending ones that we have, what stages they're at, expanding on that to see different contracts, different terms, who the vendor is, any scope scheduling, and then the line items that it is that sell. So again, giving you that capability to ask questions and keep going down and clicking those links to find out more and more and more. Right? So now that we've gone through the project side, I'm going to actually jump over into the contract side. So again, the job's been awarded. We have the contract set up. This is going to be that same kind of menu, that query menu I showed you earlier, where we can see a list of all the projects or all the contracts that are currently available, what type they are, if they're fixed, T&M, and then even drilling into that. Additionally, to see, again, the contract details. So when we look at this, summarizing the data up here on the top to show that, to reflect that, and then down below, we're going to see the actual schedule of values. You can see here, I have change orders affecting the line. You can have them blended into a single line if you want to. I'm going to show you that in a moment, but just know you can also break it out. So as we go through this, again, you can see the different schedule, what type of billing we're going to be doing, the retainage as well. Absolutely can, if you continue on the project's already live, we've gone through it, we're towards the end of the job, and we want to update that retainage, maybe drop it down, you can absolutely go into the edit button and update that. So from this point moving forward, it's going to reflect that new retainage value. So absolutely that will be accomplished here. And then while we scroll all the way up, if I wanted to also see anything that we've billed or any bills that we've created off of this contract in this AIA form, I can go into my billing details and be able to see every single bill that we've created within this platform that pertains to this. So in here, I can see a list of all my AIAs. Now, something I do want to mention is terminology within, if you guys are familiar with 300, has changed over into Intacct. So where Intacct calls the AP, they call them bills. I believe you guys call them invoices, and where we call the AR bills. Again, the terminology has just flipped a little bit. So just keep that in the back of your mind that some of the terminologies have changed. They no longer call this bills, they call them invoices. All right? So again, let's just be able to reference that. Now, how do we go ahead and create that invoice? So what we do here is go into this invoice page. Again, I've gone through my shortcuts, or I could go over into my projects and be able to hit generate invoice right from here. It's going to take you to this menu. Now, again, if you're doing more service work, this is going to pertain maybe to your customers we're going to bill off of, such as if you're leveraging Sage Field Operations, we can create invoices from that. But because we're going to be creating an AIA today, this is going to be based off of my project contract. And then I'm going to select the template that we have in here, which is that AIA format. From there, we're going to go ahead and select the contract itself. It's going to pull from the list of available contracts. And then we're going to put the date that we're going to build through. Again, I'm just going to use today for demo purposes. And we're going to preview what that looks like. So from here, it's going to obviously auto-populate a lot of fields because we've already captured or recorded them. Obviously, the template, the customer that it's going to go through. What we're going to have to update is just the application number. So I'm just going to quickly do that. And then as we go down to the schedule values, you can see here are those different line items. Now, here's where I had mentioned we can have a separate change order affect a different line. Or as we see over here, we can have it affect the existing line as well. Just goes to your personal preferences when we set you up or how you want to capture that. A lot of these menus as well that we have these data entries can be customized. So if things like maybe internal or an external reference, that's something that we don't want to see, well, we can hide that in our options so these fields may not apply or may not show, so we don't have to scroll back and forth with the toolbar at the bottom. All right. So as we start to go through this process, again, as we know, we're just going to update the percent to complete. So if I wanted to put in 88%, just as example, 80. As you see, I'm just going to go ahead and just populate some of those different fields, some numbers in there real quick. And as we go through that, you're going to see the system does all the calculations for you as you expect. But the nice thing here is if you wanted to go back and change in any values for whatever reason, such as maybe this period, I just prefer it to look as 1500, I can update that value and it's going to back calculate that percentage just for us. That same principle also applies to your retainage over here at the end. So when we're dealing with this, as if I wanted to just drop this down on a one-off basis to a 5% retainage, I can absolutely do that. And as I select out of it, it will update the value. Or even if we're wanting to release any retainage in this billing period, we can absolutely update that and release the retainage from here. Once all your fields have been captured from here, all you're going to do is hit create invoice. And once that's created, it's going to bring us back to the generation of the invoice page, which we can go to the next one and the next one, the next one. Right. Now, to view all of those, again, you could go either to your contracts, or we can go to even the invoices side of things to be able to see this kind of, again, that query menu and see every invoice that needs to be issued out or where they stay, the stage of them. So are they been posted? Have any been paid? Seeing the ones that we need to pay out. And then you can apply payment directly from here by simply hitting that hyperlink, selecting the payment method that we're going to be preferring here, and then scrolling down and even seeing the values from here. All right. So next up, going through here is I'm going to go into our bills page. So in our bills page, a few things that we can show from here actually. Beforehand. So if we are leveraging a timber scan or a titanium product, well, timber scan and titanium, essentially the same thing. Talk more about that later. When we start to go into the bill side of things, and I want to see a list of all of the bills in here, you'd be able to see this and run different queries from these menus. And just like the previous screen, I can do an individual one-off pay a specific bill. But if we're going to go through and pay multiple bills at a time, well, I don't want to make you go into this menu and click one at a time. That's crazy. What we're going to take you to is go over into the bill side, pay bills field, and this is where we can, again, select multiple bills to be paid out that we need to. Now, a few things to kind of draw attention to in here is there is a lot of ability to tweak or customize how we view this information below. One of those would be by the filtering options. So under here, you can create your own filtering set. So it could be by project. We've even seen the time. Again, I know this doesn't happen all the time, but we've even seen companies where they assign individuals a day of the week. And that individual or that organization knows that they're going to get paid on every Monday or every Tuesday or every Wednesday. In that circumstance, what you can do is create a filter and put a custom field on the vendor record and assign a day of the week. So when I hit my filtering, it shows me all of my Monday vendors or all my Tuesday vendors. So again, more so showing you the capabilities that you can filter or customize to meet your personal preferences on that viewing screen. Same thing with the ranges here. Now, while we start to scroll down, you can see our payment methods. So how are we going to be paying them? We're going to use check today, but I do want to show you a couple different examples. If we are using ACH, again, that option is going to be available. You can also see whatever vendor's personal or preferred payment method of payment is. You can assign that to the vendor record. And then when we're tracking things like our compliances on the vendors as well, this is where we can start to see some of those compliance issues that may arise. So with compliances, there is a couple different ways to track it. It is essentially a date range, and you can say, I want to track this date, but I don't want the system to notify me of it. Again, really doesn't happen often, but again, it could be a date you want to track. And it essentially won't pop up with any issues. It's just something that you're going to have or be able to track in the background. More commonly is you're going to see kind of what we have here is a warning, which is essentially saying, hey, I'm going to let you pay this, but I want to let you know something's going on in the background. And users can go ahead and click that and be able to see exactly whatever the compliance issues is at hand. All right. So again, that's a warning, but that still is going to allow me to pay it. The last one is going to be more an error. So it's going to say error. It will not let me pay out that vendor until that compliance issue has been resolved. All right. So again, that's something that we would work with you guys on setup of how you want to see that. In this example, I just have it where it's a warning, so I can still reference or still pay out any particular bill. But in today's example, this $45,000 invoice for the alpha installation, we're going to go ahead and pay that one out today. So I'm just going to check one individual off. Again, I could check as many as I need to, but I'm ready to go ahead and pay that. So I hit pay now. So now that has been marked, it's going to pull that off. And because we're using it via check, we need to now run check, which typically is going to be done at the end of the week. So how we do that is go ahead and go out into your print checks field. This is going to show you all of the different checks associated to them, the different styles. Are you doing it maker, pre-printed, what account you're going to be pulling from as well is going to be pulled. It automatically pulls in the next number, and then whatever the particular bill that needs to be paid out. So again, and down here, I'm going to use this 84,000, or excuse me, let's use the same one here. This alpha installation, the $45,000 value. Again, I can check as many ones as I need to, and then simply hit print. Goes through the printed process. It's going to show us if it printed correctly. Awesome. We go ahead and hit confirm. If it did not, ran out of ink, printed jammed, whatever, go ahead and void that out. But again, in this case, I'm going to hit confirm. Now, the nice thing that I like to show, and where a lot of this information ties back to, is kind of that real-time reporting. So when we talk about this and these transactions, these invoices getting created, populated, as soon as we hit that print, confirm, save, whatever that action item is, essentially what this allows me to do is if I go into my dashboards, go into my reports, this AP manager view that we have here, I can see all the posted payments that we have captured from here. I can expand on that report as well and be able to see in real time, here's that alpha, how we paid that out. This is by check, and there's that $45,000. We can even view that check as well. So really what we're trying to portray here is it's very easy to see these information, and as soon as that action item happens, we're easily able to update all of those reports, view that contents of those reports in that real time. All right. Excuse me. So one last thing that I want to show before we turn it over to Q&A, because I see a couple questions are getting submitted in there, and I absolutely will be addressing those in a moment. But one of the things I wanted to also show you is over here in the cash management side of things. So absolutely able to track in your credit cards, all of your different checking accounts. But the nice thing with Intacct is under our different bank accounts, we can actually connect these to your specific bank. So while we go through, I'm able to go into my bank transaction and get a live look at what's happening in my bank. I believe it syncs up, let's see, it's every day or half a day. We can verify that for you, but it's essentially giving us a live look at this. What this allows a lot of our users to do is either do a reconciliation report weekly, more consistently, or even some individuals want to do it daily if they want to. Excuse me. You're able to do that and be able to run those reconciliations a lot more consistently. All right. So with that, that's everything I at least wanted to show you guys today. So what I am now going to just kind of go into is more of our questionings. Anyone who is hopping off, I just want to thank you guys for your time today. If you guys have questions, you want to see a one-off demonstration, please feel free to reach out to your account manager. If you aren't aware of your account manager, again, you can message myself. You can call the Action at 800-4ACTION or even info@action.com. So again, feel free to reach out to that. What I want to really use the remainder of today's session is just really going over any questions or anything like that that may have come up. All right. So again, a couple questions that we have here. Let me just kind of move some fields around so I can see this a little easier. So the question came up was, do we need TimberScan to store and see the image of an invoice? So if you don't need to have that. So if you wanted to have a completely separate program, you don't need to go in and have a full OCR functionality that TimberScan has. You don't need all of the bells and whistles. You can do a lot of those workflows, the approval process within Intacct. If you're manually typing in as well those invoices and having those, that can all be done within Intacct. You aren't dependent on TimberScan or what the version of for TimberScan for Intacct is called Titanium. So if you hear me saying that, it's essentially the Intacct version of TimberScan. So you won't need Titanium, but it really comes down to a lot of that OCR functionality. If you're leveraging that, it's not really in Intacct today, so we'll be able to route those. But you can have the approval process within Intacct and not relying on Titanium. So do the invoices / documents that are in Sage Paperless come over to the AP bills section? So with Paperless, actually, I don't know if they have a version that is integrated yet with Intacct. I know that that's coming out very shortly. And they're going to have essentially where it's more of a cloud-based version. So that system actually does not yet integrate with Intacct, but will be coming out in the very near future. And again, I would say reach out to your local rep or your local account manager. They can definitely get more information on when that functionality is coming out. But I do know that that's coming shortly. So question, will we need to retain My Assistant if we utilize Sage Intacct? You won't need My Assistant. My Assistant is just tailored for the Sage 300 system. A lot of functionality comes down to those smart rules and smart events that would replace your My Assistant. So automatically email out certain reports, do specific functionalities, that would be built into Intacct. So essentially that would negate having the need to use My Assistant. And again, happy to talk a lot more on those. Very powerful tool on its own. Yeah, so one of the questions that came up was, did you say that we could pay vendors and subcontractors based on a project number? So absolutely. So under that filtering tab, when we have the pay bills, one of those could be either your project name or number as well, whatever your preference is. that you could absolutely filter that information out and pay them on that particular, view that information on that particular project name or number. Yep. Interested in the AIA invoicing. Can you explain what those look like for the customer? So essentially, when I hit that drop down, and I hate to also maybe push this off a little bit, but when I hit that drop down, we've created a template in the background that essentially emulates the AIA format. And that template is going to be really whatever you want it to look like. So even if you're not doing an exact AIA, you can tweak it and make it look very similar to it. And that's just going to reference however you want to build it out as. So if you're currently using one today or have something, what I would say is, again, reach out to your local account manager. We can kind of get a more one-on-one basis to show you exactly what that template functionality can do. But the takeaway is we can emulate what you currently have today to send out to the customer of however you want to see that information. All right. Okay, cool. So you can refresh that. Learning this new platform. Can you speak to the security of client data for someone using this platform? So yeah, within Intacct, this is all your data. So again, you guys are able to extract this whenever you want. Some of the systems out there, just I wanted you guys to be clear, won't let you have your own data essentially or keep your data. But Intacct allows you to take anything you want. It's hosted. We leverage AWS for a lot of that functionality. So in terms of security, that's really the best that's out there. A lot of that data is protected, but you guys can be able to export that whenever you want to, or anything, or even share that. So again, a lot of security on the back end. Happy to get more gritty with that, but again, we're pretty much using the AWS platforms for that. Question is, do we currently use Homefront? Does that integrate with the Intacct system? To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but what I would tell you guys to do is with any integrations, or if you're more concerned of does that already have an existing integration with Intacct, if you just Google Sage Intacct Marketplace, just type that into Google. It'll be the first option available. It will pull up a list of all the different existing integrations that have already been built with Intacct. And they've gone through that testing. So again, going back to as an update gets released, it's not going to break any of those integrations. You know you're on the latest version. So again, I would say go look at that. If you don't see anything there, really with the Intacct platform, you can build out an integration, but again, there's a lot more cost associated with that. So with that Homefront side, I would say first look at there. If you don't see it there, again, reach out to myself and we can start to talk a little bit more about maybe someone else has created something that's not on the Intacct marketplace, but I can certainly dig into that a little bit more for you. Is there a data migration path for 300 to Sage Intacct? So with a lot of systems out there, it's really just an export of a lot of data and import to a lot of data. Short answer is Action is working on some functionality to enhance that, to make that a lot easier for you guys. I would say this is kind of more of an off the book conversation. We're not yet ready to show you exactly what that functionality has. But when we start talking about that, reach out to your account manager. We can more handle that off on a one-off-one basis. But right now, there is a couple different ways to export your data, make sure that your data is in the right format, nothing's broken, everything kind of has nice continuity and can easily be pulled in. And there is a process that we have internally in Action, and we can definitely handle a lot of that functionality. So again, reach out to your account manager. We're gonna, I feel like, have a lot more questions surrounding that. Yeah, so question is it recommended to move to Titanium if we move to Sage Intacct, or can we use we use the 300 from TimberScan we currently have. So TimberScan, it will not work with Sage Intacct. So what you would need to do is move to that Titanium, which is that cloud-based product for them that they've created. In terms of learning curve, it's the same look and feel. It's just cloud-based and allows them to communicate with Intacct a lot more easier. So the uptick in the learning curve isn't really there, but you would need to go to Titanium if you want to have that TimberScan functionality. TimberScan itself will not integrate directly to Intacct, but like I said, it's essentially the exact same thing. And I'm happy to send you a couple of videos to show you what that looks like. Question was, we also use TimberScan forms for our credit card platform, formerly Core Cloud Systems. Would that functionally stay with the TimberScan forms, or can Intacct handle credit card functionality? So Intacct can handle credit card functionality. You would want to kind of talk a little bit more with you of what your requirements are around that. TimberScan, I believe, is a lot more robust in that category. Capabilities, but again, that's probably more of a one-off conversation of comparing what your requirements are. Do you need all the functionality? There is some functionality within Intacct that might make sense to you. So again, definitely when you're going to need a little bit more of a conversation around that. How seamless is the migration from Sage 300 to Intacct? So really, it's a data conversion. Sage Intacct, we're going to need to get that format into essentially SQL data to then import it into Intacct. We are creating a couple tools to make that process very seamless, but again, it's not a flip of a switch and overnight kind of thing. We do want to make sure all the data is good to be submitted in, and we typically recommend about 2 years prior if you need to capture historical data. Any more than that, Sage will give you, I think, an instance of 300 and that you can keep all of your historical data on. So you can always reference that for historical purposes. But the migration itself, again, it's not a flip of the switch, a very easy a process, but again, a lot of conversation needs to stem from that. So I do want to say, let's get together with you guys more. We're going to connect with our consulting manager who goes through that process on a day in, day out basis. So a lot of questions will come up from that. Question is really, is there any limitations to ad hoc job cost reports, creations, and the ability to export those? Not really. So if you guys are familiar with Crystal reports, essentially Intacct has their own version of a reporting tool that they built in. So it's really easy to create any of those reports in here. There's a lot of support in the system as well. I didn't show you that, but on the help side, if you hit help on this page, it will tell you everything that there is to know about that. So for instance, if I'm on a reports page and I want to figure out how to do a unique or custom report or create these crazy workflows, you can go and help on this page. It'll tell you everything. And then with any of those reports, those could be either added to a dashboard or even exported to Excel if you prefer that as well. So there aren't really much limitations to that. Excuse me. Does Intacct have the same certified payroll capabilities as 300? So there's a whole payroll module within Intacct, and a lot of those capabilities are going to be in the Intacct platform that are in Sage 300. A lot of that crossover. A lot of the people as well who, when we started building out the Intacct platform, we leveraged a lot of consultants, a lot of people who have 30 plus years of Sage 300, and you can probably see a lot of those same workflows are over in Intacct to kind of help emulate them. So a lot of that capabilities it's essentially the exact same from 300 into Intacct.
Hey,
So
Jared, I do want to stop you. It may cut off soon. 1 o'clock is when it's supposed to shut off. You're more than welcome to continue, but there is a probability that it may stop on you.
okay, so if it does, my last thing I say, I'll just everyone feel free to contact your account manager. Information's on screen. Please feel free to call me. I'm going to go through a lot of these as well. If it shuts off, I can reach out to each of you guys. Um, but it looks like we've gone over and it's still going, so I think we're good.
Okay.
Uh, with Sage Intacct, does it need Office Connector, or does that become obsolete? That becomes obsolete. A lot of the exporting automation of specific workflows, templates, things like that are already built in. Really, Office Connector and My Assistant essentially go away for the most part with the Intacct platform, so we don't really need those anymore. Looks like I think I skipped over 2 of them. Emails to people. Yeah, so the question is, currently with My Assistant, I send out emails to people that do not have access to the software. Would I be able to do that with Intacct, or does everyone need to have licensing? So if you remember earlier on, I showed you the report and how it said scheduling. You can schedule that to people outside the system. You could even take it further if you really wanted to do some unique workflows. And with those smart rules and smart events, you can email really much as you need to out to anyone outside the organization. You could even have them get updated. So when I went from project is inactive to awarded or bidded to awarded, if I wanted to create a field to have any individuals be notified of that, such as the project manager or the owner, whoever, I could actually build that logic in and it will send out an email to let them know. So no, you would not need to give them, they wouldn't have need the ability to be able to see Intacct. We can either hard code an email address in, or it can reference a field to be able to say, email those individuals out. So no, you will not. So we do we still need or use the service management module as our work order management system, or does Intacct have its own platform? So if you guys are familiar with Sage Field Operations, really what we've leveraged there is that product specifically. Sage Field Operations essentially takes over all of the service management functionality and everything around the work orders, purchase orders, or when things need to be paid. All of that, information flows back into Intacct. Again, I hate to sound like the broken record. A lot of questions are going to come up from this, but essentially, service management goes away. We leverage what we call Sage Field Operations to essentially build all of that functionality out. So there's a lot of different functionality. There's also several other work order, work service management systems that do integrate with Intacct. So again, reach out to your account manager. Happy to go through all of your different options, but that would be a third party or an ISV system, as we call it. I think that's all of the questions that we have.
That was great job, Jared, and thank you everyone for submitting all those questions. They were fantastic. We will pass them along to your account manager as well, just so that if you have more further questions or you want more elaboration, they would be happy to help you out with that. If you have other questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to Jared or I directly. Our emails are in the email that you received earlier today. If not, like I said, your company's sales rep will be in touch soon, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. As a reminder, we have provided a webinar survey. Please fill that out, as your feedback is important to us. We want to thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.